In Christian belief, the Thursday before Easter is a holiday. It's the celebration of the Passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, which culminates on Easter Sunday. In Sweden, it's also the day when the witches come out. The island of Blåkulla is where the devil will hold his earthly court during a witch's Sabbath. This island can only be reached by magical flight. On Maundy Thursday, witches would fly off to the island to feast and dance with the devil. It was believed that the witches would travel using either a broom, branch, or any other tool available. Sometimes they would even use an animal as a means of transportation. The witches would also sometimes kidnap children and take them with them to the devil at Blåkulla. People would never know that a witch was at Blåkulla, because by using magic, the witch would make it seem like she had never left her home at all, and people would see her at her home as usual. To protect themselves from these witches, people would burn large fires, which was believed to scare the witches away. This belief in the Witches of Blåkulla is said to originate from the very first Maundy Thursday, when Judas betrayed Jesus. Because of Judas's actions, evil was released into the world, including the witches who would fly to Blåkulla and cavort with the devil. This belief in the Witches of Blåkulla was also featured prominently in the witch trials that took place in Sweden during the 17th century. There were witch trials that occurred years prior, but they seldom resulted in death sentences. Most often, those trials would result in fine or banishment, but not death. That would change. It was between 1668 and 1676 that the largest witch hunt in Sweden would take place. It all started when a church pastor in Älvdalen in Dalarna interrogated a little shepherd girl named Gertrud Svensdotter. In the autumn of 1667, a boy named Mats Nilsson claimed to have seen a young girl leading goats over eastern Dalälven by walking on the water. This girl who was accused was Gertrud Svensdotter, and she was 12 years old at the time. During the interrogation, this pastor would encourage the girl to say that she had indeed walked on water, and that she had done so with magic. Magic that was given to her by the devil. In complying with this story, Gertrud would accuse a neighbor's maid of having taken her to the devil at Blåkulla. She claimed that she had visited Blåkulla several times with this maid. Soon, more and more people, including the maid's younger sister, would accuse her of being a witch and taking them to Blåkulla. These accusations featured prominently during her trial. The name of this maid was Marit Jonsdotter, and she would become the first person accused of witchcraft during the witch hysteria that would be called the Great Noise of 1668 to 1676 in Sweden. During her trial, up to at least 10 more people would be accused, among which a widow named Karin. Marit and Karin continued to plead their innocence and refused to confess to any crime. Still, they were found guilty. However, the fact that they refused to admit any wrongdoing put the court in a bit of a dilemma. Executing someone who had not confessed to a crime was forbidden by Swedish law. But the court knew that these women were not aware of this law, so they set a plan in motion. This plan was to have priests persuade them to confess. The priests would tell these women that they would not be executed even if they confessed. But if they did confess, they would receive Holy Communion and thereby go straight to heaven. But these women refused to confess to anything, which forced the authorities to send them back to jail, where the priests would spend years trying to trick them into confessing. MacLeod never did. Unfortunately, this didn't save her. In the end, she was still executed despite never confessing to her alleged crime. The widow, Colin, however, was eventually released. This trial against MacLeod set off witch hysteria in Sweden. During the years that she was locked up, more and more people were accused of being witches. It's estimated that around 280 people, mainly women, were executed as witches. The last so-called witch was sentenced in 1704, but it wasn't until 1779 that the death penalty for witchcraft was repealed. As mentioned, Blåkulla was featured heavily during these trials. During this time period, people would also secure their doors to guard against the witches traveling to Blåkulla. Any tool that a witch might use on their trip was hidden away on Maundy Thursday. The idea of witches and Blåkulla would change over time. In modern times, the tradition has become a bit more child-friendly. In Sweden and Finland, it's an Easter tradition for children to dress as witches, old women and old men. Wearing headscarves and faces painted with rosy red cheeks and freckles, the children will then go door to door, wishing people a happy Easter and receiving candy in return. This tradition would take place on either Maundy Thursday or the day before Easter, which is Holy Saturday. Today, in Sweden at least, it seems that this tradition has been replaced by another dress up and receive candy tradition, namely Halloween. Which is a shame because I remember doing this as a kid. And also, during this time of year, many people, mainly women, will joke around and say, "See you at Blåkulla." So, if you see any strange flying objects during Easter time, make sure that you have your doors locked.